The first Tuesday of the month was always the same. I would take the 10:15 bus into the city. I would meet my sister, Vivian, for lunch at the Mayfair. She always chose the table by the window. I always ordered the soup and half sandwich. It was our routine for 7 years, ever since our mother passed. That Tuesday was no different. The sky was a flat, pale gray. Vivian was already seated. She smiled as I approached. It was her efficient smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Eloise," she said, "you're right on time." I sat. The leather seat was cool. "How are you, Vive?" "Busy, the usual. Nathan's firm is expanding again." She said this without pride. It was a simple statement of fact. Nathan was her husband. His architectural firm was her favorite topic. The waiter came. I ordered my usual. Vivian ordered a salad and sparkling water. "So," she began, folding her hands, "I spoke with Paul at the bank." Paul was our financial advisor. He handled the trust our mother left. "There's a paperwork issue with the joint account." "What kind of issue?" I asked. My soup arrived. I stirred it slowly. "Just a beneficiary form." Vivian's voice was light. "Mother," Will was clear, "but the bank systems are archaic." She took a small bite of her salad. "They need both of us to sign some things." "That's fine," I said. "I can go in next week." "No need." Vivian waved a hand. "I had Nathan's assistant scan and email the documents to you." She sipped her water. "You can sign them digitally." "Is that secure?" "Of course. Nathan's firm uses it for million-dollar contracts." She smiled again. "It's easier this way, saves you a trip." I thought about the bus ride, the crowded bank lobby. "All right," I said. "If it's easier." "It is," she said. "I'll take care of everything. You just sign when it arrives." We finished our lunch. We talked about her daughter's piano recital. We talked about my garden. We split the bill, as always. She took a cab back to Nathan's office. I waited for the bus. The email came 2 days later. It was from an address I didn't recognize. "Essay request, Banner Bank action required." The document was long, full of legal terms. The key lines were on page 4. It requested the consolidation of 2 accounts, a checking and a money market, into a single managed trust account. The trustee was listed as Vivian Marie Thorne. That was my sister's married name. The beneficiary was listed as Eloise Ann Miller. That was me. I read it twice. It seemed in order. Mother's trust was always meant to be joint. Vivian was the executor. I was the beneficiary. This looked like a formality, a technical update. I clicked the signature box. I typed my full name. I clicked submit. A confirmation screen appeared. "Document executed, thank you." I didn't think about it again. Not for a long time. Life continued. My days had a gentle rhythm. I lived in our mother's house, the one we grew up in. I tended the garden. I volunteered at the library on Thursdays. Vivian's life was louder, full of gallery openings and charity auctions. She called me every Sunday evening. Our calls were brief. She asked after the house. I asked after her family. It was a comfortable distance. The first change was subtle. It was 6 months after the signed document. My quarterly trust distribution was late. It was usually deposited on the 15th. The 20th came, and nothing. I checked my bank balance online. The usual amount wasn't there. I felt a flicker of unease. I called Vivian. "Oh, that," she said. Her voice was distracted. I could hear keyboard clicks in the background. Paul is restructuring the portfolio. Restructuring. For better growth. She paused. The distributions might be irregular for a bit. For how long? A few quarters, maybe a year. She softened her tone. It's for the best, Alois. Mother's trust is supposed to provide a steady income. And it will. Her keyboard clicking stopped. But with inflation, we need the principal to work harder. She used the word we. Don't worry, I'm watching it. All right, I said. I trust you. The words felt automatic. I hung up. The unease didn't leave. It settled low in my stomach. A quiet, cold stone. The next Sunday call, Vivian brought it up first. The portfolio is doing well. That's good. Nathan's firm is doing exceptionally well. She changed the subject. He's bidding on the new municipal complex. I listened. I said little. A month later, my distribution came. It was half the usual amount. No explanation. Just a deposit listed as Trust Disbursement, Miller THORNE. I started a notebook. A simple, ruled composition book. On the first page, I wrote the date. I noted the missing distribution. I noted the reduced amount. I wrote down what Vivian had said. Word for word, as best I could remember. It felt like an overreaction. But the cold stone in my stomach insisted. The next Tuesday lunch was at a new restaurant. Vivian chose it. It was too loud. How are your finances? She asked over the noise. They're fine. The smaller distribution isn't a strain. She looked concerned. I'm careful, I said. You've always been frugal. She smiled. Mother appreciated that. She leaned forward. I was thinking, the house is a lot for you. I manage. Of course you do. She sat back. But the roof is old. The furnace is from the 90s. They work. For now. She signaled for the check. Nathan knows a property manager. I don't need a manager. Not for the house. She paid the bill. I didn't argue. He knows someone who could do a valuation. Why? For your planning. She stood, gathering her coat. It's good to know what your assets are worth. The valuation request came by email a week later. A man named Robert wanted to schedule a walkthrough. I declined. I told Vivian I wasn't interested. It's just information, she said on the phone. It feels invasive. You're being difficult, Alois. Her tone was flat. This is what adults do. The cold stone turned to ice. I had never been difficult. I was the easy one. The quiet one. I don't want a stranger in Mother's house. Fine. She sighed. Forget I mentioned it. The silence after that call was different. It was a tactical silence. It lasted 3 weeks. No Sunday call. No texts. I gardened. I went to the library. I wrote in my notebook. I recorded the silence. Then an email from Paul, the financial advisor. It was copied to Vivian. Per Vivian's instructions, attached is the updated trust summary. I opened the PDF. The columns of numbers were dense. I found my beneficiary subaccount. The balance was listed as $142,867. That seemed low. Much lower than it should have been. The statement covered the last 8 months. There were a series of outgoing transfers. They were all labeled Capital Reallocation T. The amounts were large. $50,000. $75,000. $100,000. The destination account number was masked. But the descriptor was clear. Thorn Architectural Partners operating account. I stared at the screen. The words blurred. I printed the statement. I held the paper in my hands. The chills spread from my stomach to my fingers. This was not restructuring. This was not for my growth. My inheritance was funding Nathan's firm. I did not call Vivian. I did not scream. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we had family dinners. I laid the printed statement flat. I got my notebook. I wrote down the date. I wrote, saw statement, transfers to Nathan's firm. My hand was steady. The anger was not hot. It was crystalline and perfectly quiet. I began to research. Quietly. At the library, I used the public computers. I looked up trust law in our state. I learned about fiduciary duty. A trustee has a legal obligation to act in the beneficiary's best interest. I read about self-dealing. It is a breach of that duty. I printed the statutes. I highlighted the relevant lines. I needed my own lawyer. But I had little money. My distributions were now sporadic and small. I used my small savings to pay for a 1-hour consultation. The lawyer's name was Amanda Shaw. Her office was small and plain. I brought my notebook. I brought the trust statement. She listened. She read. "This is problematic," she said. "Can we stop it?" "We can try." She explained the process. It would require a petition to the court. We would have to prove Vivian was mismanaging the trust. We would need a forensic accountant. That would cost money. Money I did not have. "There's another way," she said. "A demand letter. From a lawyer." Yes. It might scare her into compliance. Or it might make her escalate. I thought of Vivian's efficiency. Her calm, sharp mind. "She will escalate," I said. Amanda Shaw nodded. "Then we need to be ready." I left her office. I took the bus home. The demand letter was sent. It was polite. Firm. It requested an immediate accounting of all trust transactions. It requested the cessation of any transfers to Thorn Architectural Partners. It requested the restoration of the full beneficiary balance. It gave a deadline. 30 days. Vivian called me on day 29. Her voice was not angry. It was dripping with pity. "Eloise, I got this letter." "I know. Why didn't you just talk to me?" "I tried. This legal threat, it's hurtful." I said nothing. Paul explained those transfers. She paused. They were short-term loans. From my inheritance. From the trust's assets for a high-rate return. Where is the return? "It's coming. Nathan's project is delayed." Her tone shifted. It became softer. More concerned. "This is why I wanted to help you plan." "Help me." "Yes, you're clearly overwhelmed." She sighed. Signing that letter, it shows poor judgment. The ice in my veins was absolute. "What do you want, Vivian?" "I want to help you." She said it so gently. "I think we should discuss a conservatorship." The word hung in the air. It was a legal cage. "You're not thinking clearly, Eloise." "Because I hired a lawyer." "Because you're alone in that big house." Her voice was a velvet trap. "You're fixating on money. It's not like you." "It's my money. It's Mother's money." She corrected me. "And she wanted me to make sure you were cared for." "I am caring for myself." "Are you?" She let the question linger. "The court will see the letter you sent. They will see a stable woman protecting her assets. They will see a confused woman lashing out at her family. She paused. Which story is more believable? She hung up. I held the phone. The quiet in the house was total. I walked to my notebook. I wrote down the word. Conservatorship. I circled it. Amanda Shaw was grim when I told her. That's the nuclear option, she said. Can she do it? She can petition. On what grounds? Diminished capacity, financial mismanagement. I've managed my bills for 40 years. But you live simply. Is that a crime? No, but it can be framed as an inability to handle complex affairs. She tapped her pen. If she files, we will have to respond. How much? 15,000, minimum. I didn't have 15,000. Not anymore. I had to get my own documents. All of them. My birth certificate. Mother's will. The original trust agreement. I knew where they were. In the fireproof box in Mother's study. I went to get it. The box was gone. I stood in the study. The shelf was empty. A thin layer of dust showed the rectangle where it had been. Vivian had a key to the house. She must have taken it. I called her. The document box is gone. I have it, she said. Why? For safekeeping. It's safe here. With your recent agitation, I thought it was best. You had no right. I have a duty. Her voice was calm. As executor and trustee. That doesn't mean you steal. It's not stealing. She sounded so reasonable. It's protecting the estate's documents. From me. From your impulsivity. I closed my eyes. I want it back. When things are settled, you can have copies. That was the moment. The silent awakening. There would be no reasoning. No family discussion. This was a financial takeover. Disguised as concern. Executed with calm cruelty. I had one advantage. Vivian believed I was simple. She believed I was passive. She believed I would break. She was wrong. I stopped arguing. I went quiet. On our next Sunday call, I was polite. Distracted. I mentioned the garden. I complained about the weather. I sounded vague. I let her hear it. Are you feeling all right, Alois? Just tired. You should see a doctor. Maybe. I began my real work. I went to the county recorder's office. I requested a copy of Mother's will. It was public record from the probate filing. I paid $5. I got a certified copy. I went to the bank. I asked for statements for my personal account. For the last 10 years. The teller printed them. They were free. I went to the State Business Registry website. I looked up Thorne Architectural Partners, LLC. I found its filings. Its registered agent. Its articles of organization. I printed them all. I found Nathan's firm's website. It showed its projects. The new municipal complex was featured. In development. I found the city council meeting minutes online. I searched for the bid awards. Thorne Architectural Partners was not listed. The contract had gone to a larger firm. Months ago. Nathan's firm was not expanding. It was struggling. I compiled everything. I created a timeline in my notebook. I linked the dates of the large trust transfers to the dates of business loan payments listed on Nathan's firm's old tax returns. I found those in a public lien filing. The connections were clear. My money was not invested. It was paying his debts. I needed a forensic accountant. I could not afford one, but I could do the basic math. I did. The total transferred was $487,000. Over 14 months. Almost half of the trust's total value. I took my notebook, my timeline, my documents, to Amanda Shaw. "This is good," she said. "It's not a full accounting." "No, but it's enough for a judge to order one." "What about the conservatorship threat?" "We file first." She leaned forward. "We file a petition for breach of fiduciary duty. We ask for her removal as trustee. We ask for a full forensic audit. And we ask for a temporary restraining order, freezing the trust assets. Will it work?" "It changes the narrative." She smiled thinly. "Instead of you being the unstable sister, she is the untrustworthy trustee. The court will see 2 petitions, hers and ours." "Yes, and they will have to weigh the evidence." We filed the next week. The petition was 23 pages. It was dry, full of facts, dates, numbers. It attached my exhibits, the bank statements, the business filings, the timeline. It requested Vivian's immediate removal. It requested an independent trustee. It requested the frozen assets. It requested she pay my legal fees. The court date was set for 8 weeks away. A hearing on the temporary orders. Vivian was served. She called me that night. For the first time, her voice was not calm. It was sharp. "How could you do this? You left me no choice. This is public. Nathan's clients will see. That is not my concern. You will ruin us. You used my money to try to save yourselves." She was silent. Then she whispered, "You won't win. We'll see." The war was quiet. It was fought with paperwork. Vivian's lawyer responded to our petition. They filed their own, for a temporary conservatorship. They claimed I was paranoid. They claimed I was financially reckless. They claimed I was isolating myself. They attached an affidavit from Vivian. It described my erratic behavior, my unfounded accusations. It mentioned the demand letter. It was a masterpiece of distortion. My response was due in 20 days. Amanda Shaw and I crafted it, line by line. We countered every claim. We provided more evidence. We attached affidavits of our own. From my librarian supervisor. She stated I was reliable and lucid. From my longtime doctor. He stated I was in sound physical and mental health. From a neighbor. She stated I was private but perfectly competent. The hearing was not dramatic. It was in a small, wood-paneled courtroom. The judge was an older woman. She looked tired. Vivian and Nathan sat at one table. They looked polished, professional. I sat with Amanda Shaw. I wore a simple blue dress. I was calm. The judge read the papers. She asked a few questions. "Miss Thorne," she said to Vivian, "these transfers to your husband's firm, how were they in your sister's interest?" "They were short-term loans for a high return, Your Honor." "Where is the promissory note?" "It was informal, between family. The trust document prohibits loans to trustees or their relatives. I was acting in my capacity as a sister, to help. You were acting as a trustee." The judge's voice was flat. "The two are not the same." She turned to Vivian's lawyer. "Your conservatorship petition relies heavily on Ms. Miller's decision to seek legal counsel. It shows a pattern of poor judgment. Seeking legal counsel is a right, not when it's based on delusion." The judge looked at me. "Ms. Miller, do you understand the nature of these proceedings?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you pay your own bills?" "Yes." "Do you manage your daily life?" Yes. She turned back to the other table. You have not met the burden for a temporary conservatorship. The petition is denied. Vivian's face went pale. Nathan stared at the table. Regarding the trust, the judge continued. The evidence of self-dealing is substantial. I am granting the temporary restraining order. All trust assets are frozen. Ms. Thorne is removed as temporary trustee. The court will appoint a neutral administrator. A full forensic accounting will be conducted. She set a date for the next hearing, 6 months away, to review the accounting and to decide on permanent removal. Court is adjourned. It took 10 minutes. There was no shouting, no triumphant music. We stood. Vivian looked at me. Her eyes were not full of pity anymore. They were full of pure, undiluted hate. It was the most honest look she had ever given me. She turned and walked out. Nathan followed. He did not look at me. The neutral trustee was a firm. They were cold and efficient. They took control of all the accounts. They began their audit. They subpoenaed Nathan's firm's records. They traced every dollar. It took the full 6 months. I received a copy of their report. It was 200 pages long. Its conclusions were stark. Vivian had systematically looted the trust. She had transferred $512,900. Not $1 had been repaid. No promissory notes existed. The high returns were fictitious. Nathan's firm was insolvent. The money was gone. The final hearing was a formality. Vivian did not attend. Her lawyer stood alone. He did not contest the findings. The judge entered a judgment against Vivian. For the full amount plus interest, she was permanently removed as trustee. She was ordered to pay my legal fees. A lien was placed on her home, on her share of the trust, on her personal assets. The judgment was recorded. It was a matter of public record. Collecting the money was another matter. You cannot get blood from a stone. Nathan's firm declared bankruptcy. Their house had a large mortgage. My lien was behind the bank. Vivian and Nathan moved into an apartment. They sold their cars. Their life contracted. Quietly, I did not pursue them. The judgment stood. It would follow them for a very long time. I remained in Mother's house. The court-approved trustee resumed my distributions. They were steady. They were on time. I repaired the roof. I replaced the furnace. I did not speak to Vivian. Not ever again. The aftermath was not victory. It was a long, quiet sadness. I had lost my sister. I had known her for 50 years. The betrayal was not a sudden knife. It was a slow, clinical dissection of our bond. She had chosen her husband. She had chosen his failing dream. Over me. Over our family. Over her duty. She had tried to make me the problem. To erase my voice with legal paper. I rebuilt my life. It looked the same from the outside. The garden. The library. The Tuesday bus. But I was different. I was quieter. I trusted less. I saw more. I kept my notebook. It was full now. A record of the unraveling. One day, 3 years after the final hearing, I got a letter. It was from a debt collector. They had purchased the judgment from my trustee's firm. They offered me a settlement, a fraction of what was owed. I did not respond. The judgment was not about the money anymore. It was a fact, a permanent public fact. It stated what she had done. It was the truth. That was enough. I sometimes wonder what she tells herself. How she justifies it. She must have a story. One where she was the victim, where I was ungrateful, where Nathan's vision was worth any sacrifice. I will never know. That story is hers to live with. Mine is here, in these pages, in this quiet house. The final question is not about justice. That was achieved, in a procedural, unsentimental way. The final question is simpler. It haunts the edges of my quiet days. It comes when I see two sisters laughing in the library. It comes when I hear a familiar voice on the bus. When did she first look at me? Not as her sister, but as a resource to be managed. And did she ever, even for a moment, see what she was losing before it was already gone? The quiet settled in after the final hearing. It was not a peaceful quiet. It was the quiet of a field after a battle. Everything looked the same, but the ground was scarred. I tended my garden with more focus. The physical work was a relief. Planting, weeding, harvesting. Each action had a clear result. The law had moved. Its gears were slow but definitive. Now life had to move on. I was not sure how. The trustee firm, Sterling Fiduciary, communicated by letter. Formal, impersonal, perfect. My distributions arrived on the 1st of each month. The amount was calculated by a formula. It considered the trust's recovered assets, its projected growth, my life expectancy. I was a number in an algorithm. I found it comforting. I did not hear from Vivian. Mutual acquaintances sometimes mentioned her. A friend from our childhood saw her at a grocery store. She looked tired. She did not speak. Another heard Nathan had taken a job with a large development firm. Not as a partner, as a project manager. They had moved to a different suburb. The information came to me in fragments. I did not ask for it. I did not stop it. I noted it in my mind. I did not write it down anymore. The notebook was closed. A year after the judgment, I received a formal notice from the bankruptcy court. Nathan's firm, Thorne Architectural Partners, LLC, was being dissolved. Its assets were negligible. Its debts were vast. My judgment was listed among the unsecured creditors. It would receive nothing. This was expected. The notice was a period at the end of a sentence. I filed it with my other papers. In a new box. A metal one. With a lock. I kept the key on my keychain. My life was my own again. The house was quiet. I had moments of unease. When the phone rang late. When an unfamiliar car parked on the street. But they passed. The system had spoken. Vivian had no legal leverage left. The conservatorship threat was dead. Her reputation in certain circles was damaged. The court records were public. Anyone could search them. I knew some did. A former colleague of Nathan's called me once. He asked vague questions. I said I had no comment. He apologized and hung up. The story was out there. It had a life of its own. I focused on practical things. I updated my will. I left everything to a local literacy charity. I named Sterling Fiduciary as the executor. There would be no family confusion. Not next time. I met with a financial planner. Not Paul. A woman named Linda. We built a simple plan, based on my distributions and my modest needs. It was prudent, boring, secure. 2 years passed. The seasons turned. My routine was a gentle anchor. Library on Thursdays. Garden every morning. Tuesday was no longer for lunch in the city. I used it for errands, or for reading. I missed the ritual sometimes. Not the lunch itself, but the structure of it, the expectation of another person. I joined a book club at the library. The people were pleasant. We discussed novels. We did not discuss our lives. It was enough. Then the letter came. It was in a plain white envelope. My address was handwritten. The handwriting was Vivian's. I recognized the sharp, slanting script. My heart did not race. It sank. A slow, heavy descent. I placed the unopened envelope on the kitchen table. I made a pot of tea. I sat. I looked at it. The postmark was local. She was still nearby. I opened it. It was a single sheet of paper. No salutation. Eloise asterisk. I am writing because there are things that need to be said. Not for forgiveness, I don't expect that. But for the record. Nathan's firm was failing. He was facing personal guarantees on loans. We were going to lose everything. The house, our savings, everything. I saw the money in the trust. It was sitting there. You never touched the principal. You lived on the interest. I told myself it was a loan, a temporary bridge. I told myself I was protecting you from Nathan's failure. If his firm went under, I thought I'd have nothing left to help you with. Isn't that twisted? I was wrong. In every way a person can be wrong. The court was right. I breached my duty. I betrayed your trust. I betrayed our family. I am stating this plainly. I am not blaming Nathan. The decision was mine. The signatures were mine. I am telling you this because I have to say it to someone, and you are the only one who knows the whole story. You won. You were right. I was wrong. There, it said. V asterisk. I read it 3 times. The tone was not pleading. It was not manipulative. It was a stark, dry statement of facts. And of guilt. It was the most honest communication from her in a decade. I felt nothing for a long moment. Then, a deep, weary exhaustion. She had written to relieve her own conscience. Not to mend anything. There was nothing to mend. The bridge was not burned. It had been dismantled, brick by brick, over years. Only the foundation remained. And it was cracked. I did not reply. What was there to say? Thank you for your confession. I acknowledge your wrongdoing. Her letter was for her, not for me. I put it in the metal box, with the court orders, with the final judgment. It was another piece of documentation, proof that she knew. That was all. Life continued its quiet pace. Another year, then another. I turned 60. The book club gave me a card. The library gave me a small cake. It was kind. I felt a flicker of warmth. It was genuine. It was not tied to obligation or blood. It was simple human kindness. I held on to that. I thought of Vivian less. Her memory became like an old photograph, fatting at the edges, the sharp details softening. The letter had somehow done that. It had pinned the truth down. It allowed me to put it away. The not knowing had been a constant hum. The why. Now I had her why. It was pathetic. It was small. It was human. It changed nothing. But it allowed the mental file to close. 4 years after the judgment, my doctor retired. He referred me to a new practice. A younger doctor. Dr. Ellis. During my first physical, she asked about family medical history. I gave her mother's details. Heart disease at 72. I gave her father's. Cancer at 68. Siblings, she asked. 1 sister. Any major health issues? Not that I am aware of. I said it calmly. It was the truth. I was not aware. The doctor noted it down. The question was routine. My answer was factually correct. It felt like a small, quiet victory. Over nothing. Over everything. I began to travel. Small trips. A train to a coastal town for a weekend. A bus tour to see fall foliage. I used my distributions for it. I saw new things. I ate in quiet restaurants alone. I was not lonely. I was observing. The world was full of stories. None of them were mine. It was a relief. Then the email arrived. It was from Amanda Shaw, my lawyer. She was leaving her practice, moving to another state. Her email was professional. She was closing her files. She wanted to know if I needed a referral. I wrote back. I thanked her for her help. I told her I was fine. I wished her well. She replied quickly. You were one of my most patient clients. I'm glad it worked out. Take care. Patient. It was an interesting word. I had not felt patient. I had felt like a stone in a river, letting the current of the law wear down the obstacle. But her word was apt. I had waited. I had documented. I had not raged. That was patience. I realized I had become an expert in a narrow field, the field of quiet betrayal, and its quiet remedy. I knew about fiduciary duty, about promissory notes, about forensic accounting, about temporary restraining orders. This knowledge was useless to me now. It was a suit of armor I could take off. I stored it in the back of my mind, just in case. 5 years after everything, a Saturday afternoon, I was pruning the rose bushes by the front fence. A car slowed on the street. It stopped. It was a modest sedan. The passenger window rolled down. It was Vivian. She was alone. She looked older, thinner. Her hair was gray now. Not stylishly gray, just gray. We looked at each other. The distance was about 20 feet. The sound of the engine idling. A bee buzzed near the roses. She did not smile. I did not wave. We were two strangers who knew everything about each other. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then she gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was not friendly. It was an acknowledgement of existence, of history. I did not nod back. I simply looked. She rolled up the window. The car drove away. It turned the corner and was gone. I went back to pruning. My hands were steady. My breathing was even. The encounter lasted less than a minute. It felt like the true ending. Wordless, undramatic, final. That night, I dreamed of my mother. Not as she was at the end, but in her garden. She was showing me how to pinch off dead blooms. It encourages new growth, she said. In the dream, I understood she was not talking about flowers. I woke up. The room was dark. The house was silent. I understood something. Vivian's betrayal was not the only story. My response was also a story of quiet awakening, of systematic defense, of dignified resistance. It was a story without heroes or villains. Just people, making choices, living with the consequences. The next week, I called Sterling Fiduciary. I scheduled a meeting. I met with their representative, a man named Mr. Evans. We discussed the trust's long-term health. It was doing well. The principal had been restored through careful management and through the court-ordered repayment from Vivian's share. It was a closed loop. There is the matter of the outstanding judgment, Mr. Evans said. The balance she still owes personally. What about it? It is an asset of the trust. We could pursue more aggressive collection. What would that involve? Wage garnishment, further liens. I thought of the tired woman in the car. The gray hair. The flat nod. No, I said. Let it be. It's a significant amount. It's a number on paper. He looked at me. You're sure? I'm sure. He made a note. As you wish. The judgment would remain. It would still be a matter of record. But I would not use it as a weapon. Not anymore. The law had done its work. My work was done. I began to write. Not in the notebook. On my computer. I wrote the story. From the beginning. The Tuesday lunches. The email to sign. The missing distributions. The valuation request. The stolen document box. The legal petitions. The hearing. The audit. The judgment. The letter. The drive-by. I wrote it all. I stuck to the facts. I wrote it as I have told it here. Calmly. Clearly. Without embellishment. It took me months. When I finished, I printed it. I bound it in a simple cover. I put it in the metal box, on top of all the other documents. It was the final piece. The narrative that connected the evidence. My testimony. For no one but myself. I am an older woman now. My life is small. It is my own. The house is paid for. The garden thrives. The library is a constant. I have a cat. He is not affectionate, but he is quiet company. I am at peace. Not a joyful peace. A settled peace. Like sediment that has finally rested on the riverbed. The story is over. Justice was not a thunderclap. It was a slow descending dusk. It covered everything. It softened the sharp edges. It made the details harder to see. But the landscape remained. Changed. Quiet. I sometimes sit in Mother's chair by the window. I watch the light change. I think about the machinery of family. The gears of love and duty and resentment. How they can mesh for a lifetime. Or how they can slip and grind everything to dust. We are all custodians of something. Of money. Of property. Of trust. Of memory. The failure is never in the moment of the theft. It is in the 1,000 moments of justification that come before. The slow rearrangement of reality. To make the wrong thing feel right. To make the victim seem like the problem. Vivian lives with her rearranged reality. I live with the truth. We both live with the consequences. That is the balance. Unglamorous. Enduring. The final question is not for her. It is not for the court. It lingers in the quiet of this house. In the space between the facts. When you have been erased from someone's story. Carefully, legally, kindly. And you must rebuild your own story. From the paper trail they left behind. What remains of you? When the last document is filed, and the final quiet falls.